start from the beginning, to give you a bit more context, Georgia was a very long time part of the Soviet Union. Basically, was colonized. I mean, I could say by the very big power. So the power which was kind of directing and just giving them the kind of lot of different kind of the pressure on the country. So the cinema was one of the kind of very strong art during the Soviet Union, and not only like in Georgia, but also in entire kind of this union. And but in Georgia, it was always something very, very strong and very incarnated and very kind of embodied by the Georgian filmmakers. So I was born in still Soviet Union in '85, and I lived 5 years in this kind of already a bit wobbly, a bit weird kind of society that was still kind of rooted back to the Soviet Union, but also was clearly transitioning in something very new. So I'm kind of really the kid who kind of went through this. I mean, I experienced on myself this big change of the big kind of rupture and big kind of collapse of the Soviet Union. And why I'm saying this, and also during the Soviet Union there was something that it never existed, and there was something we didn't have any religion, so it was the GATT was never existed, which is very interesting for me. So when the Soviet Union collapsed, Georgia stayed basically without identity, and it was kind of really reflecting on all of us. Also for the families, we tried. It was a system, if you imagine, we had to bring or to learn how to live independently, because everything was really linked to the economically. All the resources was from the union. So basically country just stayed alone, and we had to really kind of auto-organize our lives, which was very powerful and interesting. Which of course there was, but it was all kind of wiped out, and that was the idea of the ideology of the communist so-called regime. Yeah, exactly. So, and during this time, as the question was a question of the identity was it was very present, and also politically there were like different systems trying to establish, and it was of course big corruption, and I'm not gonna go deep in there. But that was a moment when the religion and the church started to come into the power and really started to kind of reflect, kind of really just, I don't know, like bring power over the society. So it was really in the 90s that church really became stronger. And I think that was this religion, or I would more call the church, that very clearly was deciding the gender roles, who had to do what and how. So there was kind of like a moment that also I was I was female, I was born as a girl, I was kind of socialized as a girl, and I was kind of learned to be the woman and be a nice woman and a good woman and just to behave the way how everybody was telling me to be. I don't know till when, because that's exactly the moment that it's the process. So it was such a strong, even though like. What was also interesting for me that it was not clearly opposed on me, but I was part of this society, and I was totally kind of repeating and reflecting what I would see and how I would kind of socialize with others. And of course I would go to the church, and I would just kind of, frequently. Actually, I was really doing everything how I was supposed to. I had a lot of problem with it. I would exactly, I was doing it, but I never felt that it was right. I never felt that there was something that I had to, but I didn't have a alternative. Yeah, it was like a more kind of system, I would really feel that there was something wrong in there. And so after this, there was this long period, so I started to paint, and I went to the art school, and I was just doing the basic painting. I was I learned a lot of kind of classical kind of drawing, everything basically, which was never kind of enough for me I couldn't express myself at all. It was something that was very, I could master something, but I was not able to express what I wanted, but also still then I didn't know what I wanted to express and how. So after this, it's again like there is a long period of time that I work in a group, which art group, and we do like a different artworks together. So I tried like something more individual. I tried something more collective. which I kind of understood that it was much easier for me to work with others, and I really like to kind of share and just work and do like a common work. So, and I think that was also the moment when I somehow I was growing up, I was getting more information, and I was having like more questions and more kind of resistance towards the system, and I knew that I didn't want to stay in Tbilisi, I didn't want to stay in Georgia, and there was a moment when the war with Russia happened. So it was 2008. So that was the moment I graduated my art school, there was a war, and I just wanted to leave, and I really tried. I didn't have a kind of, it's also important that I didn't have financially kind of family who could support me, so I had to manage everything by myself, which was also very nice, and I'm very kind of proud of this that I could. And so I sent the different portfolios for different schools in any kind of European school, and I was accepted in Switzerland. So basically I arrived in Switzerland without knowing any language. I mean, I was just like this bit ex-Orthodox weirdo, kind of not knowing where to be, what to do. So I arrived there and I started to study critical theory, which was like, I didn't understand anything. It was really like, we really started first lesson was about the Marx, which I knew very differently. And I'm like, what? Why we are just going through the Marx again, you know? I just run away from this. So, and I think that it really helped me to. There was like 3 years of this master that I went through. It was very interesting because, honestly saying, I think in one hand, not knowing language really defended or kind of saved me to know like some extra shit. I had kind of very selective kind of. I could understand. I could feel what was important for me to understand. And I think that this I would say this visual work, what I've done before, and this theoretical work somehow like brought me to the feeling that I could have done something that I was never, I never thought about making cinema because, I mean, to get back how I started, because it was the work of the man. So I couldn't really imagine that I could make a film because I was born as a woman. So which. I mean, it was always challenging me. I mean, I was a part of this kind of, understanding that it's something that I could go somewhere that there was no my place. I was extremely, I was in love with the cinema always. I was kind of a cinephile from the beginning, like in a childhood. Anything it was coming up, I would watch, and everything kind of was moving. It was basically TV was the window to another world. It was the window that I could connect myself and my life with something that was happening beyond. So, and I think that it's also like my first impression, which I always think that it is a kind of big drive and very important part for me. It's really this first intuition what I had towards the cinema. That when I watched the film, I really loved Italian neorealism, and it was the film of Vittorio De Sica, Miracle in Milan. And when I watched the film, I really felt that even though there was differences between me and these people, there was different language, there were like different setup, its country was different, there was something very common, and there was the expression, and there was the universality of the story, and the gesture and the body, which I could totally identify myself with. So that's the feeling that unconsciously, I think, always lived with me. And when I finished this excruciating critical theory, I said, okay, I'm going to cinema and I'm going to try something that it's also creative in terms of I could involve everything what I learned so far. I think that feeling, it's really I remember that how and why I just love to watch the films, and which was this connecting to something that, or just hearing the voices or watching the others that you could feel some connection with. And so I think that basically cinema became something for me that was very personal, something that I was questioning everything what I just told you about, like my identity, about like just sharing of information, about like my knowledge, everything kind of just got collected in me, and I started to question things. And this beginning of my first year in cinema was really something in a cinema department that I was just going in every direction just to find like, okay, what would I like to do and how I want to use this art or this domain cinema in a way that it's very personal, but it's also very political for me, because I just needed to have this strong connection, because I always thought, and I think that this is like really art, that it's very connected to the contemporary politics and not only. And it was also the moment that I was also questioning a lot of, again, like my identity and also my sexual identity and also kind of my gender identity. And there was a moment that I was I was always connected to Georgia. And that was the moment when the first gay pride took a place in Tbilisi. Ooh, I didn't do anything.
Nor I.
And so there was, it turned out, it was really tragic. Everything was like so, I don't know, like basically it was nothing about the festive. It was super, translate this, what I said.
What was happening?
It was a first gay pride.
Gay pride, yes.
And that kind of everything kind of turned in a really wrong way. And basically, what happened, it also to tell you very shortly, it's the Christian Orthodox Church just decided to the raid against the gay activist, or like a queer activist. So that you had like, I don't know, thousands like Orthodox, like Christians. They were kind of going against really few, I would say like 50 queer activists who were just trying to basically say something or just visibilize themselves. So, and that was the moment that it's basically, it clicked to me that what I was always looking for, it's something that my everyday life, it's part of something what I always put in my art. And it's also something for me to communicate with others. And of course, my communication started from my family, because I needed to show them who I really was. And I was a person that I just didn't know who, clearly, like what I wanted, what I liked, who I liked, and I was all these questions, and also like the kind of the Christian identity that I was not really feeling good about it. So basically, I made the first feature, the short film, which it was my way to make coming out, and I didn't need to talk and say anything. I just showed this film to my friends, to my parents, to my family. And everything was clear, and it was crazy, really, for me, that what I would do and what I was doing, it was really clearly communicating to people that was really important for me. So I'm going to show this little extract, which is also like very interesting for me, that I haven't watched this film such a long time. It's been I think 10 years ago that I made it. And it's very interesting that basically it's 10 minutes and there is no word. It's all silent, and I think it also kind of talks a lot. I mean, I don't know, when I watched it, I felt that was very, kind of clear for me that why it was silent, because I couldn't also express in it in a different way. So it's a film made in 2012. It's called The Father Bless Us, and it's made with they're non-professional actors and actresses. So it's a story of two girls. They kind of come across to each other. I mean, they're lovers, and one is trying to kind of get more familiar with another's culture, and another kind of it's likewise. I think that the point was like for me a part of. It was really about all this ritual and all this kind of knowledge and things that I was, I grew up and just wanted to really kind of break something and just to really use the codes as that was untouchable, and also kind of confronting like this something that was very important for me in front of this huge kind of patriarchy that was kind of representing the church in this moment, all this, this system that was very oppressive. So I think that it's reusing this very sacral, rich Christian Orthodox ritual, which is the marriage, confronting like standing in front of something that it's super powerful. I don't know, it was very liberating for me. So it was kind of first step for me to kind of start my own way of the emancipation. And I think that it's also what was very important for me, that to tell this story in a way that would be I could connect with others easily. So I think that was when I realized that also this I mean, way of the question of the gestures that I'm very interested in the cinema. It's a body, how the body kind of carries all the history, how the body kind of carries all, you know, everything. You don't need to talk basically to express who you are. And also the gaze, kind of, there are like two very important kind of elements for me. What I tried to explore, it was like gesture and a gaze, and the silence that it's, if you observe and if you take a time for looking at something, you can discover so much than just, you know, making the lot of talking. So after this, I think that, well, I mean, I just made another films, so I just wanted to, you know, it was all, the questions were kind of very similar. It was about my identity, it was about the culture that I come from, the politics, and not only, I always kind of was trying to connect with the environment where I used to live. So in this case, it was Switzerland. So and again, like not to go very far and make it more shorter, this, I mean, the question of the, I mean, still now for me, like this, where I'm kind of, my home, the kind of where I have the roots, it's still very present for me. So each time I was kind of to tell the stories and to express what was really important for me was always bringing me back to Georgia. And it's always kind of, it used to be kind of really like my reflection and my impulse and my kind of anger, what I had towards the place that basically was not giving me kind of space to exist. And people like me and people like who wanted just, you know, I would say the minorities, and not only like queer people, also like ethnic minorities, the race. So it was really a place that it was very angry about. So, and I made my diploma film, which was also kind of this commentary or kind of anger, and also kind of like a showing or giving the place and just giving the visibility to something that it always existed, it was always there, but you know, nobody wanted to give them a space and a life, you know. So I made a short film again, like which was my diploma work. It's called The Gospel of Anna Sirma. Basically, Anna Sirma, it's the gesture which was performed during it's kind of in a mythology. You had this the character which is the non-binary person, has also like the both genitals. And it's somebody who was doing it kind of, it was lifting up the dress and showing the genitals to the public. So it was some kind of showing up something and just really confronting to something that it was also back then very, you know, just a bit of hidden. Yeah. So it's basically it's a gesture, but it's in a film. It's not like a show, but it's kind of more the metaphorical. So it's yeah. So the Anna Sirma's Gospel, it's a story which I made it with. I wrote by myself, and I worked with the non-professional actors. And again, for me, it was very important to work with people who were part of the community, and not to create or just to, you know, like imagine by myself how these people, or like how people that we were talking about, or I was interested, or they were interested to be part of the film, that it was not only my imagination. I wanted that it was, you know, there were real people acting and just really showing what was, you know, who they were. So Bianca, she was unfortunately she was murdered in 2015 in Georgia, in Tbilisi. So she's the transgender woman, and so we made a film together. And she's basically she was the one also who was participating into the writing of the story. So it was basically the process was like I met her when I was just writing the film. I met her, and I just offered her to participate into the writing, also to, you know, just I didn't want again to be like just somebody who is exterior, and not to giving the place, and not to only kind of imagining or fictionalizing something that was very real. So she gave a lot of suggestions, so it was quite nice and fun kind of shooting. And so it's a story of the Georgian little kind of man, I would say, who is falling in love with falling in love with the transgender woman, and it's about it's a reaction again on this about this pride, and it's about this International Day Against Homophobia, which was in Georgia also very violent, and it basically turned into some extremely violent event, and it happened kind of again what I said before. So the church, how they kind of try to basically very openly try to attack the activists. So it's again like a my and her, and also like everybody's reaction towards the event. I tried, or I'm kind of trying to bring in a films that it's this connection between the fiction and reality, and this kind of the documentary and the fiction kind of hybrid, which even though it's very fictional, it's very like a stage, it still kind of carries the part of the documentary. So I think that why it was important for us to do this, and for me that it's again it's an archive for me. It's something that it's very important that it exists, and it's also the language for me that I wanted to, and we all wanted just to communicate with and to show something that was very, it's existing, and it's like really underlining this very strong kind of traditional society that basically, we see the kind of result of it. So after this, like, just I made, I was going back and forth all the time. So it's still something that I kept, and I keep still very strong kind of connection with my home. And so I think that this distance also helped me to also being somewhere else, and also kind of building up the different life, and also confronting different society also opened up something to me that I didn't think about before. Which was also like I confronted my own racism, how I was basically, even though I was never kind of, but I felt that how I was prejudiced about the race, how I was prejudiced about the gender, everything was like a very, it was very difficult kind of path, but well, I mean, I think that it's important to say this. So, so that was kind of the process that, again, I would say that how society kind of teach us to be, and what they teach me, and how they really engraved and kind of stamped me that they wanted me to be. But I kind of, all this way of, again, through the cinema, how I really try to, just, I don't know, somehow learn or unlearn things that I was learned. It was more process of unlearning. And so, as an architecture, it's also very important for me in my cinema. So it was one of the time that I went back. I found so there was. It's very interesting, kind of to tell you that shortly there is in the center of the city. There is a very. It used to be very kind of in the Soviet time. It was a hotel, which was very popular hotel, very accessible for everybody. It was quite cheap, so everybody could kind of stay there. So there you have this, like, I found it very interesting in terms of this, the change, and how city reflects also on the political changes. So how this hotel became kind of the heart of the capitalism, which started with this so-called kind of communism. It just turned out like something extremely fancy, very luxurious Radisson hotel. But you have, like, what is very interesting, that you have these levels, which is very interesting, and it talks a lot about the kind of the social structure. You have this very, this fancy hotel, you go down underground and you see, like, that's the world, basically, that's the reality, which was like for me really huge. I was really, it's not only inspired, I was like, how is it possible that even this symbolically really clearly talks about something that it exists. So I am truly a drop of sun on earth. It's a fiction, which I made in 2000. I filmed it in 2015. It was right after Anna Sirma, but it took a long time to to edit, because meanwhile the Bianca died, and also the main actor, like a Nigerian guy, he also died in Tbilisi. So the film idea started with really this kind of my research of this architecture, how it was kind of reflecting on the society, but slowly kind of when I went down and I just discovered the world underneath these looks, I thought that it was important for me to make a film. So you have like in this underground, like a lot of clubs. It's a nightclubs, which are it's illegal clubs. Basically, like state never gave them a right to exist. And you have, I think they don't exist anymore. It's now it's closed, it's shut down.
Because of your film.
So, and you have like basically you have what is the business there? You have sex workers, the Georgian sex workers, who come from the regions because they cannot find a work in their villages. So city is the place that they could run away, and they find the job, which is the sex work. And basically, like again, that's what is integrated in a society, that you have clearly this. It's extremely misogyn. It's extremely kind of snobbish. And it's also like a Georgian men, they don't go to the Georgian sex workers. So it's a kind of like it's under kind of it's under marginalized kind of like a level that you have, and you have a Nigerian immigrants, which is also another story why they are there, and you have the Georgian sex workers, and that's the place where they exist together, and it's the place where they basically two communities that they are extremely alone and extremely pushed out. They find themselves, and they find just the two humans. They kind of get together. So it's extremely low budget film. It's I mean, it's very tiny crew, and basically we had also the choice of the black and white. And like we wanted to make also because places we'd never had any permission to go there, so it was all kind of guerrilla style of doing it, but with the actors and actresses, of course, they knew what we were doing. And also like we used almost no light, and it was really about because we didn't have the financing. We just really thought that how to use this extremely kind of little moyen just to make something that it makes kind of sense. So we were basically kind of there was no light. We filmed with a very high ISO. In it.
High ISO.
Yes, ISO. It's sensibility of the image. Yeah. So I'll show you this bit of just feel of the place, which is also like this very mix and hybrid of the documentary and the fiction, and you will clearly see where the documentary kind of crosses the fiction.
მე მელოდება. უცხოეთში მივიდეთ.
გოგო, ისის ტიპი არ არის გუშინში იყო.
საიდან სიროს ტიპია ეს ინკოალი ერთმანეთთან.
What gonna across Madrid?
No, I wasn't coming here. I was going to Georgia.
It's Georgia.
No. Georgia, USA.
And the process of making the I'm Truly Drop of Sun of Earth was also, they were, as I mentioned, they were they were non-professional actors, and they were participating into the writing. So narrative and the story, what is told, it's also, it comes from their experience. And it's also what they went through and how they live and what they wanted to tell in the film. So I think that it's also something that it was so important for me that it's again like my position. It's not just somebody who is just there and looks at the stuff or observes, but it's also very participative process, and it's the story that it's told. It's not my perception, but it's also something that it has certain kind of it has a connection, and that if I would like to emphasize or visualize something, that it's not only my way of showing it, but it's also kind of has like a different angles. So that's a really it's a real story. With arrival of the kind of speed capitalism, that's also kind of huge fraud came with it, which was this exchange with the students, and of course it was attacked to the mostly like to the countries that they were really wanting to go to Europe or to the United States. So I think also this huge part of the Nigerian community, they were kind of really trapped there because they were kind of in a fraud. So basically, the entire film was also about what I mentioned, that it was about these two people. It's in a story-wise, it's how they find each other and how they really get connected within their loneliness and within their kind of the marginal life that basically they couldn't really connect with something else. So after this, what I think is important to mention that the Daniel's friends, again, two Nigerian guys, also my friends, that we worked on a film together, they decided they wanted to make something for Daniel when he passed away. So they called me and they asked me if we wanted to make a film together, because they said we have a story we want to tell, and if you could just just imagine that you could realize it, direct it. So I said, like, why not if you write it? So they wrote a story. And we got a financing, and I just went there to make a film with them. So that's also something that they are screenwriters, and they proposed a story, and I was somebody who was just I don't know, I did a mise en scène. So it's a story about these two guys. They kind of find each other. They kind of have very special connection, which it could be understood or felt kind of something queer, which they do have it, but it's also not very like strictly said that it's a gay story. It's really about how they just get connected, which can go like in a different direction. So it's as I mentioned, it's a one-day story, which is it's about Daniel, and it's everything, all the details that it comes in a film. It's about his life, and it's about how he lived in Tbilisi. We need to stop here and just leave the space to the audience if they need and they have some questions. Non. Parle de pourquoi c'est pas pourquoi c'était pas été sorti. Voilà. Ou en fait Oui, après ça, en fait, ouais, après le Red Dance, j'ai fait le deuxième long métrage qui s'appelle Wet Sand. So, if you want, I can show you extract, si vous voulez. Ouais. Ok, on peut commencer avec l'ouverture de film. Attends, je fais ça. So it was kind of, it's basically, it's again, it's about, I mean, in general topic, it's again a question of identity. It's about, I don't know, the alienation. It's about immigration, you know, somebody who leaves the place, who comes back. And it's about the being other in a society.
Nelly, შენ არაფერი გაგიგია?
რა უნდა დამეგოს როტინი?
ადრე თუ გვიან მაინც მოხდებოდა.
ისედაც ხომ დავხენილი ცხოვრება. ახლა იგღამაკლია ელიკო დავმარ.
მაშინ ავიღოთ და გადავაგდოთ ნაგავში. ან ძაღლებს მივუყოთ. 1 წელი ხომ იყოფთ.
შვილიშვილის ნომერი უნდა მქონდეს სადღაც.
კეთილი იყო შენი დაბრუნება. მართალია ცოტა კი დაგაგვიანდა, მაგრამ ჟობს გვიან ანდრე არასდროს.
შეგიძლიათ დამარხო? რა? დამარხო, თუმ კუდაღია.
Subtitles it would be hard. So it's a love story. As all the films what you saw. It's a love story which was hidden for 20 years, and the guy, Ammar, the main character, who is hiding his story in a village. He doesn't want to talk about this, and his lover passes away, and his granddaughter comes in the village to discover and to kind of investigate what happened. So you have all this setup of this with this strong tradition, the homophobic context, and I mean this, you know, everything what I talked about till now. So and to finish, I think all this I would show the ending of the film, because it's also like what I found, which I couldn't do it before this film in my cinema, that I really felt that something ending the film with a hope was very important for me, which also changed in me after, like, throughout these years when I was just creating things. I felt that it was very important to kind of end something with a hope that, you know, I will have a place to exist.